I am the son of a prosecutor and I am a thief. There are a lot of things to think about here. That I'm a fucking goat, an impudent official son, an unscrupulous slob who wanted a thrill. But I paid for my sin with my freedom. They put me in jail. I'll tell you my story, and you can decide how to judge me. My name is Isaac. My mother has been a nurse almost all her life at a local hospital. When she was young, she met a patient named Lucas. I changed his name. He got a broken leg on her shift. They put a cast on him and sent him home. And then he came back for a dressing, and at the same time to see my mother. He took care of her for a long time, added dates, but she thought that building relationships with patients was not worth it, as she knew. But Lucas was persistent, and at the same time handsome and fit. He then only got a job in the district prosecutor's office as a specialist. He did not respond to my mother's refusals. He was too submissive to her beauty. Day after day, he made beautiful gestures to her. He would give her flowers, take her home, bring her lunch at work. In general, my mother loved him later, and very, very much. They had an affair. As my mother said, their relationship was great, but it didn't last long. As soon as she found out that she was pregnant, Lucas disappeared. He told her that he was not ready for fatherhood and marriage, and she understood, but warned that she would leave and raise the child herself. He agreed and left without even asking the health of his beloved. The only thing he left behind was a wristwatch, engraved with Lucas plus Masha. After a while, I was born. To be honest, my mother never made me feel inferior or inferior. Everything was fine in our little family. My mother raised me to be honest and kind. I don't know how much it cost her. I graduated from school and immediately went to work, because it was very difficult to live on my mother's medical salary. When I started working, it was a little easier for us. But then something happened that I didn't expect at all. For some reason, it seems to us that our parents are eternal, and if they have us, they will protect us for the rest of our lives. That's what I thought. And I was completely unprepared for the fact that she would get sick, and very much so. My mother was found to have kidney problems and needed expensive treatment. Our non-rubber budget has been shaken. I was looking for additional work, found it, but because of the main work and terrible fatigue, I did not have enough for a long time. I tried my best, really, but I still didn't have enough money. I've been thinking about where to turn for help. I really wanted to find my father. For sure, now he has risen in office and his career as a prosecutor has advanced. But I did not know about it, because I did not know his last name and never saw his face. My mother gave me the watch he gave her when they met, and I kept them in case I ever met him. I went to see my mother in the hospital, and she was lying where she worked, due to the fact that she was her own there. We were given huge discounts, and the staff, her colleagues, were treated with understanding. They also helped well financially and with medicines. They never took money for their ward and food. They let me stay with her as long as I needed to. We were eternally grateful to them for this. But this help was not enough and decided to go to extreme measures. I thought for a long time, evaluated and weighed everything, perfectly aware of my responsibility to the law, but I screamed despair and could not allow her to die. I went to the hospital, sat with her, chatted, kissed her, and left. Then went to the pharmacy, bought a mask, gloves, put on a hat with a hood, and robbed a pharmacy on the outskirts of the city. I didn't take any extra medicine or money, just what my mother needed. I was so scared I had never been before. Everything was in a fog, and I was in a state of passion, not thinking. Just rushed in, scared the pharmacist to death, scared myself, somehow found a shelf with my mother's medicine, and just raked it in a bag. It all happened very quickly, and when I ran out of there, I went to an abandoned place at the speed of light to a construction site. I don't know how I managed to get there in 12 minutes because the distance is decent, but I didn't stop or look back, just ran as fast as I could. It was only when I was there that I finally caught my breath. Then I counted my medications to make sure I had everything. The next morning, I brought them to the hospital. The doctor said that I was on time. If I was late, the consequences would be irreversible. My mother got better, and I was happy about it. Unfortunately, one problem was replaced by another. I had to face the law because I was caught in a surveillance camera, and then my eyes were identified by a pharmacist. She said they were scared, which is not usual for a simple thief. During the investigation, I explained what I had done and why, and although my story aroused more pity than condemnation, I was brought to justice. The prosecutor acted as the state prosecutor, my free lawyer, threw all her forces at the fact that my punishment was as lenient as possible. She added that I worked out the crime with community service, so to speak, and paid for stolen medicines, of course. However, the prosecutor was persistent. He insisted in court that thieves like me were excellent liars, arrogant and lazy, and demanded that I be severely punished so that everyone else would not be offended. It was a long and hot process, but the prosecutor's presentation was significant. He won. I was given time. After the judge read it out to the prosecutor, I couldn't believe this was happening to me. Who's going to take care of Mom now? Who will help her? People came up to me and began to put handcuffs on my wrists. I struggled as best I could, and my watch fell out of my hands. "Wait!" the prosecutor shouted. There was a silence in the hall. He came up to me, picked up my watch from the floor, and asked me where I got it. I understood right away. "You gave them to your girlfriend when you were young, Dad," I said sarcastically. I tried many times to imagine our meeting, but I never would have thought that it would happen this way. I was uneasy, but that was all I could say. We were both confused and even scared. He stood looking at me like a statue, and only after a while he realized that he had planted his son. I didn't know how to react, what to do. My hands were shaking, and I was taken away by the guards. And then what happened? He didn't hide, and to my surprise, he didn't leave me. He came to me every day asking me all about my mother. He said that he didn't love anyone like her. He said that he came to her hospital, but she rejected him, sent him away, and told him never to appear in her life again. "If only I knew that she still kept my gift, I wouldn't give up for the world, son," he said. I didn't really believe it, but I wanted to. I asked him to help my mother. He agreed, and then he sought a review of the case. Of course, I still had to serve some time, but my soul was calm for my mother, and that's all I needed. I am the son of a senator. How does that sound to you? Sure it does. This automatically assumes a green light in all directions. And you know what? Being the son of a senator is much cooler than being a senator yourself. Would you like to visit my place and feel what it's like? I will tell you an unforgettable story. My name is Dima. I was born and raised in a family of politicians and businessmen. In principle, it is the same. So my great-grandfather and grandfather were officials or deputies. They didn't exactly dream about it. It just happened that life decided for them. Here is how I, for example, grew up the son of a senator. Did anyone ask me that? You will think that I am the greedy child of a rich father, a people's thief, a corrupt official. I will not comment or justify anything to my parents. I will only say that there is a downside, but about everything in order. As a toddler, I didn't understand all the possibilities I had. I had food, toys, parents, a house, everything for school, but I considered it mundane. When I got a little older, I started having companies, a lot of companies. Everyone wanted to be friends with me. I was popular. I had the coolest car in school and an expensive phone. Then I got a taste of parties. At first, all this caused great excitement. Every night we would go together with friends and I would drive them around the city, or we would go to a club and hang out until the morning. I felt all-powerful. I always got away with any kind of jams. Broke a window at school, Dad paid. Broke someone else's car, Dad paid. Beat someone, Dad paid. I didn't need a woman's attention because that was enough. Girls don't need much. I gave them flowers, phones, clothes, just gave them money, and they were mine. It was so simple. Over time, easy accessibility became annoying. I wanted something more extreme, interesting. And one day, after leaving the club, I came up with a crazy idea. My friends and I had a bet that I could surprise them within an hour. So the first thing I saw on the street was an ambulance. It was parked at one of the entrances. My friends were looking at me, and I stole the car. It was just open. I turned on the signals and drove at full speed. Damn, it was something. I was laughing. On the way, I gave everyone the middle finger. I didn't care because I was invincible. Of course, the car was found later, but they figured me out. As always, the police came home. I opened the door, and they began to rub me something about a number of violations. I yawned back at them and asked sleepily, "How much?" Money decides everything. But then my father came up to me, and of course, all the employees knew him. They immediately told me what I had done. My father took a deep breath. I know that look. It meant that he was displeased with me. He'll probably threaten to block all my payment cards again, take my car, and so on. That's not all. He didn't just steal a car, the ambulance was on the road, and the doctors had to hospitalize a seriously ill child. When they reached the street, the car was gone. In general, that child got worse. The parents went to see her son, they said. Damn, I thought, but not that. Can I get away with it this time? I thought. After the police had left, telling me to report to the police station and visit the family on my own, my father called me into his office. I sat down in a chair, and Dad took out the alcohol, poured it into a glass, and drank it in one gulp. When you were born, I couldn't believe my luck. I promised myself right away that I would give you everything you ever wanted, but especially a choice. The ability to choose your own path in life. Choose everything from the style of clothing, school, profession. I didn't have that. You know, your grandfather and his father were unwavering. They chose the future for their children. The road was predetermined, but I didn't want to be stewed in this mess. I wanted to be an architect. Even just secretly signed up for a course. Of course, my father found out about it and was furious, my father began to say. I wasn't sure what he was getting at, but then father said that he was forced to become a senator, that is, to follow in the family footsteps. And when I was born, he said he wouldn't force me to do anything I didn't want to do. Every time before I buy something for you, or choose an educational institution, I asked you, suggested options, and asked your opinion. Have you ever felt violated? What happened to you, son? Why did you do this? He asked. I didn't know what to say. Perhaps he gave me too much choice. I was just bored and didn't want anyone to get hurt. I went out of my father's study, drooping in myself, and locked myself in my room. I've never felt worse. I had nothing to say for myself. This time, he didn't go to the station to solve my problems. I understood everything, packed up and went myself. I was fined and told to work community service hours. Yes, I didn't hold a broom with a rod in my hands, but I didn't say anything. Then I went to the hospital to see the family. This was the most difficult test. I was trembling with excitement. Found the room and saw that there was a boy about 6 years old, next to him, his mother. She was asleep, sitting on a chair. She woke up when I came in and didn't know who I was. I barely had the heart to tell her who I was. There was so much anger in her eyes. She turned to me and slapped me a few times. I was just silent and didn't move. She had every right to do so. In our room, the nurses immediately gathered and took me out. She barely managed to calm down. She called me almost a murderer and chased me away. It's a good thing no one there knew who my father was. I didn't want him to suffer for my thoughtlessness. Then I went up to the chief doctor and found out the boy's diagnosis. Turns out he needed an expensive operation. I didn't hesitate to ask how much. I needed a lot of money. After I got out of the hospital, I went straight to Max's. Max is an old friend of mine. He's been looking at my car for a long time, so I sold it on the spot, took the money and went back to the hospital, put the wad of money in an envelope on the doctor's desk, and told him to do the operation immediately. Then I asked not to tell my name to the boy's parents. When I got home, my friends called me. They've lost me since yesterday. I felt so bad that I wanted to share it with someone, and I told them everything. The only response I got was, "What are we going to do today?" That's when I realized that no, they are not friends. I hung up and went to bed. After this situation, I did not leave the house for some time, only worked public working hours. I didn't talk to anyone at home. Then I went back to the hospital where I found out that the operation was performed on the boy and it was successful. You can't imagine how happy I was to hear that. Did I ever manage not to screw up? Elated, I ran out of the hospital and ran to my dad's office. Emotionally, I told him the good news and hugged him. Then I apologized for everything. Dad was silent for a long time, but then he said that he was proud of me. It was then that I realized what I wanted to do in the future. After leaving school, I went to university, and after that, I opened a small charity fund to help sick children.